AFMC is really known.
And also make sure
Hello and welcome into this week's edition of AFMC TV. We're glad you're joining us. Can you believe Halloween literally is right around the corner? Joining us today is Dr. Chad Rodgers to talk about Halloween and what goes along with Halloween.
Candy.
Sugar. And all the kids rejoice.
That's right.
So, listen, we're not reinventing the wheel here. There's probably not a lot of new information.
Right.
But what are some good tips to provide parents as we are looking at Halloween coming up here in just a few days?
Right. Halloween is a really fun holiday for kids, and it's a fun holiday for adults too. But there's a lot of festivities, a lot of dressing up, a lot of trick-or-treating, and there is a lot of candy. And there's also a lot of cakes and cookies and cupcakes. So, it's like any other holiday. Kind of have to be very conscious about how you're going to do things. So, it's sort of interesting. I was kind of reading about this and thinking more about candy, but one of the biggest things, the most common form of injury during Halloween is actually from walking.
So it's dark.
That's right, pedestrian accidents.
Yep.
So, some common things to kind of think about. So when it comes to costumes, even for adults, because we're not always, totally aware because we're going to parties and stuff like that, but it is dark and it gets darker that time of year. So, but we tend to wear costumes that are very dark. Yeah. So when thinking about going out in the evening, wearing something that is brighter, maybe incorporating that into the costume. There's reflective tapes that you can use also if it doesn't mess up your costume, but you might want to wear something brighter. Things like little glow sticks that you can attach. Flashlights are real important, but try to stick to kind of well-lighted areas, especially when trick-or-treating, well-lighted neighborhoods, sidewalks that are even, houses that are, you obviously want to make sure you go up a good pathway to a house where the porch is lit, so that you don't, trip or fall. But also intersections, when you get to, because kids are excited, and then what do they tend to do? They tend to not think,
and they just
go right
out
into that. And so sometimes drivers may not even see, and you're not just a child, but then they're adults. So being very careful at cross sections, making sure that drivers see you before crossing the street, and those sort of things can kind of prevent those kind of real common accidents.
And that goes both ways for the child and the parent as well as the driver.
Right.
The parents need to be looking out and watching for cars, but then that's really when drivers need to be defensively driving as well. Of course, with running, and this, we run in the dark and have blinking lights.
Right.
And so, how easy to clip a blinky light to the back of a costume.
It might even enhance the costume.
You just never know.
A little glitter goes a long way.
That's right. Or have flashlights, or just, because you're right, we so often think, well, people will see me.
Right.
And we rely on the little reflective strip on our tennis shoes. Nobody sees that.
Right.
They're not paying that much attention.
Something that's kind of more up high, kind of mid-chest area, or even head area.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's talk about the candy.
Yeah.
And
my favorite part.
And the impact that sugar can have on kids.
Right.
Because you get home and then it's the great trade of 2022 where you're trading candy with your siblings and whatnot. But then you're eating it too.
Right.
And then you got to settle down and go to bed because you got school the next morning.
Right.
Halloween's on Monday, so there's a lot.
Going to be pretty charged up on candy.
Woo!
Yeah.
And then you crash.
Yeah.
And so are there ways to minimize some of that?
There are some good things to kind of put in place to kind of prevent sort of that kind of high from the candy. Because, any of us left to our own devices are going to sit there and eat all the Kit Kats, right? Or all the M&Ms or Reese's or whatever it is that you love. So it's actually a good activity to even kind of extend the holiday a little bit with your child, to kind of go through, once they get home. For safety purposes, you should go through the candy together anyway and just make sure that things are not broken open or there's nothing that's been contaminated or something like that.
You don't want that razor blade in your
Snickers
bar.
That's when we were a kid. Watch out for those razor blades. So so to kind of go through the candy, pick out the things that they like, and then maybe, getting rid of what they don't want. Also, it's an opportunity for you to pick out what you like.
That's right.
as the parent. But then kind of sort of divide that up into little baggies or little portions, and then putting them into the freezer and saving those for later on. Number one, when things are frozen, they're a little bit slower to get eaten. They're takes away a little bit, puts a little barrier between the impulse to eat and getting the candy itself. But it also breaks it up in little portions, knowing that we're going to eat it over all time. We're not going to eat it all in the days around Halloween. Before going trick-or-treating, or if you're an adult going to a party, a good thing to do is eat a healthy meal before you go. That way you're not just going out and you're not starving, and when you get that Snickers or whatever, you're not just kind of shoving them down. So eat a healthy meal before trick-or-treating. And of course, after all eating all that candy, you want to make sure that we're brushing our teeth well. So as my local dentist says, to support your dentist, eat candy. So it's very true. He actually is a very big Halloween fan. So
get a lot of patience afterwards.
That's right.
And I've also heard too that after you eat candy, drink water.
Right.
Too. That's I don't know why they say to drink water.
It's just kind of the effect of hydration. So, because your blood sugar does go up, and one of the ways that you sort of deal with sugar in your blood system is through dilution. So drinking water is very important. And also, you've been out trick-or-treating, you've been out running and playing, so hydration's always
a little
important.
Water's not going to hurt anything.
Water is always.
My final question would be, what's some best practices, best advice that you could offer parents who are sitting here looking at Halloween in, a few days and think, we're not going through what we went through last year.
Right.
We're changing it up.
Right.
We're making whatever that change might be. What advice do you give parents who just don't want this year to be like how we've always done it?
Right. So I think that's one of the things where it really just takes a little time and being a little bit conscious and planning. So the conversation begins before you run out the door, before you even start to get dressed. Because once kids get into that excited mode, it's really hard to discuss or negotiate.
All bets are off.
Or if they're in that meltdown mode from the candy, that's the worst time to negotiate. So it's something, again, it's a holiday and it's fun, but it's also an important time for teaching. And it's a great time for you to spend with your child, sort of talking about safety, talking about ghosts and goblins, but also talking about portion control, why we can't eat all this candy at once, what we're going to do, maybe even together buying little bags that you're going to proportion out. There's lots of little treat bags that you see around the holidays, and that could be fun for kids, to kind of pick out and be involved in that. Another thing is, don't say, you can't have this, because that just makes, we all had that happen to us. So say, you have two things, you have a choice. You can have this or this. Which one would you like? Okay, you can have this. It's when you say no that you really create a big problem, and kids are going to go, and then they're going to just go hog wild when they get the opportunity. So giving your kids that opportunity to practice that choice making is a really great developmental thing you can do with your kids.
Good deal. All right. Dr. Chad, thank you so much.
Yeah, glad to be here.
And thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you back here next week for more AFMC TV.